not to be left in the dark. As you did for the concept of health, you can replicate such method of delivery for the concept of hygiene. So you have your wellness, disease, prevention, and you can have your symptoms, your local terminology, while doing the explanation of the keywords in terms of hygiene. This is a concept map of the explanation of the concept of hygiene. Awareness, symptoms, with the explanation here, whilst you can leave your local terminology as the base. Make sure to blend colors with everything that you are doing, especially if you are teaching in the primary school. This is some activity that you can engage your learners with in trying to explain the concept of good and bad hygiene. You can start off with this activity by putting your learners into mixed ability groups. Remember to assign leadership roles to students in the group. Make sure gender equity is achieved. In the grouping, put the learners into groups according to the task that you want them to do. In this activity, I'd advise that you take your learners outside the classroom. You can take them to the market, around the school, to areas in the community that you think are environmental hygiene hotspots. Once you decide where you are taking your learners, make sure to assign each group to a place in your community for such an activity to be done. Give them guidelines as to what to do or to look out for when they go to these places. Allow them to express themselves in a possible way as to how they want to present their results or findings. Some would decide to draw, others would want to write them in essay form, others would like to put them in a table form. Allow them to express themselves as much as possible. Do not gag them. Once such an activity is done, it will help the students to much appreciate their own way of doing things. Remember, guide them, but don't restrict them. This is an example of what you can expect from your learners. Remember, you could have your learners write down bad sentences, or you could have them misspelling certain words. Make sure to do the corrections for them while appreciating the kind of work that went into the research. For example, under the good and the bad hygiene. Don't expect your learners to write perfect sentences or spell every word correctly. You could have them writing sentences like keeping the environment clean by sweeping and putting it in a dustbin. Or when dustbins are not covered, when they are full, we don't throw them away. Appreciate the differences or the observations that they made. This will encourage them to do more findings whenever an activity is handed to them. Infections and diseases. For this topic, you can define these keywords based on recognized institutions. Example, the World Health Organization and any known world recognized institutions. Remember, the information you give for this concept should be accurate so that you not misinform your learners. Now, whilst dealing with misconceptions about diseases, do not go straight to the point and give them the concept, but rather ask your learners or students how they will define diseases, what they term to be diseases, or how would you know that someone is affected by a disease? How do you relate to people affected by diseases in your community? Once they bring all these ideas or their views, note down the ones that need to be addressed in terms of misconceptions. Once they are done, look at them one after the other and clear such misconceptions. This is just a diagram representation of some views by some students in the class. Like I've said from the beginning of the lesson, make sure to include colors, artistic representations if your learners are in the lower primary. Having dealt with all these subtopics, you then concentrate on facilitating a discussion on communicable and non-communicable diseases. In this way, you can then bring to a closure the discussion on the topic of diseases. I would advise that for this subtopic, you let the students or your learners do it as an activity. For example, you can show them videos of what communicable diseases are or what non-communicable diseases are. Let them write their own definition as they see in the videos. Ask them to list some known diseases or diseases that they are familiar with from the videos that they saw. You can also, as a way of adding to your activity, let them differentiate between communicable and non-communicable diseases. Once they do that, give them the information that you have. Let them compare the information that they came up with to that which you have given them. Once that is done, you can then close the chapter on communicable and non-communicable disease. As a way of example, you can have a table like this ready to share with your learners. Causes and effects of non-communicable diseases. This should be given after you have explained what communicable disease and non-communicable disease are. We then explain to them the causes of non-communicable disease. Remember, this should be shared after you have explained the concepts to them. Once they know the definitions, you can, together with your learners, come up with the causes and effects. Let them write them in their books or type them on their laptops. When they do that, and let them share their findings with you, you can then compare with what you have. There could be additions, there could be subtractions. Do not disregard any answers from them. Even if they are wrong, find a way to let them be aware. Do not discourage their answers. Rather, correct them. The last bit of the lesson would involve your learners going out to do a little bit of mini action research, or what they'll be familiar with projects. So, in order to be able to handle such mini research with your learners, it's advisable to read on what action research is. In our subsequent videos, special class will be done based on action research. But for this lesson and the purpose of the activity, we would explain what the activity is about. But just for you to be aware, in one of the next lessons that we'll do, we'll treat action research. Here is one interesting activity for your learners. As you are aware, we are faced with this pandemic, COVID-19. In the wake of it, there's suggestions that most of our environmental hygiene duties have been neglected by the bodies or our communities. So you can let your learners go out to hospitals or known government organizations in and around your community that deals with environmental hygiene. Let your learners go and research and identify some environmental hygiene concerns in their local community. Once they do that, let them find out if the appropriate bodies are still doing their duties. As they move out to do this small research, as a teacher, how will you take advantage of this opportunity to teach your learners to be environmental hygiene ambassadors? in case of the government organizations? Are they still performing their duties? Or all our concentration is on COVID-19? Isn't such an activity an interesting one? Remember, this activity should be done under strict adherence to social distancing and washing our hands under running water with soap or periodically using hand sanitizers. I hope you have enjoyed our lesson for today. This is all time would permit us. By way of recap, let's use some few seconds to look at some salient points for the lesson. Let's look at a few things that we talked about the lesson today. Today, we looked at how best as teachers we can teach the concept of health and hygiene, how to introduce such a lesson to your learners, how to get your learners involved in the lesson that you are going to teach. We looked at diseases and infection, using local terminologies to explain some of these concepts to the learners. We also looked at communicable and non-communicable diseases. Do you remember the mini research that we asked the learners to undertake? Once you remember all these things, it means you're following the lesson. Like I promised, wasn't this an exciting lesson? I'm sure you enjoyed it. Thank you for learning with us. See you next time. Stay safe and mask on.